Have you ever noticed something strange about the human body? We spend years learning how to eat properly, how to exercise, how to manage stress, how to become more productive and successful. But there is one thing we do more than 20,000 times every single day, something that literally keeps us alive every moment, and almost nobody ever teaches us how to do it correctly. Breathing. You can live weeks without food. You can live days without water, but without air, life ends in minutes. Yet despite how essential breathing is, most people never question how they breathe. They assume breathing is automatic, natural, something the body simply knows how to do perfectly. But what if I told you something surprising? What if the way most people breathe today is actually hurting their health, limiting their endurance, draining their energy, and even holding back their physical performance? And what if the secret to becoming healthier, stronger, faster, and more focused wasn't about breathing more air, but learning how to breathe less? This idea sounds strange at first. After all, we've been taught our entire lives that taking deep breaths gives the body more oxygen. But science tells a very different story. Your blood is already almost completely full of oxygen most of the time, about 95 to 99% saturated. Oxygen advantage the simple S, so taking bigger breaths doesn't really give you more oxygen. Instead, what determines how much oxygen your muscles, brain, and organs actually receive is something completely unexpected: carbon dioxide. Yes, the very gas most people believe is just a useless waste product. In reality, carbon dioxide is the key that unlocks oxygen from your blood, allowing it to reach your muscles and organs. Without the right amount of carbon dioxide, oxygen remains trapped in the bloodstream. And when that happens, the body becomes tired, breathless, and inefficient. This is why many people feel exhausted even though they sleep enough, why athletes sometimes hit a wall even when their muscles are strong, why stress and anxiety can feel overwhelming. The problem is often not a lack of oxygen. The problem is how we breathe. Modern lifestyles, stress, sitting for long hours, constant pressure, poor posture, and mouth breathing have slowly trained millions of people to breathe too much air. This condition is called chronic overbreathing, and it quietly disrupts the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the body. The result? Lower endurance, reduced energy, poor sleep, increased stress, and decreased physical performance. But here's the incredible part. The moment you begin to correct your breathing, your body starts transforming. Your oxygen delivery improves, your endurance increases. Your mind becomes calmer and more focused. Your body begins functioning the way nature originally designed it. Elite athletes have known this secret for years. Olympic runners, professional cyclists, endurance champions, many of them train their breathing just as seriously as they train their muscles, because they understand something most people don't. Your lungs determine your limits. If your breathing is inefficient, your body will always struggle. But when your breathing becomes efficient, something remarkable happens. You can do more with less effort. In the next few minutes, you're going to discover the hidden science behind breathing efficiency, how simple breathing techniques can transform your health, endurance, and performance, and why mastering your breath may be one of the most powerful advantages you could ever have. Because the greatest performance technology you will ever own is already inside you, and it begins with a single breath. Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with a simple question. What is the one thing you have been doing every moment of your life since the day you were born, yet you have probably never truly learned how to do correctly? Breathing. You can survive weeks without food, and gradually the breathing problems that had followed me since childhood disappeared. Imagine what that realization feels like. For years, you believe your body is broken. Then, suddenly, you discover the problem was never weakness. It was simply incorrect breathing habits. That discovery changed the direction of my entire life. I left my corporate career and dedicated myself to studying breathing science and helping others transform their health through something incredibly simple: the way they breathe. Over the years, I have worked with thousands of individuals, Olympic athletes, professional football players, marathon runners, business executives, and ordinary people simply trying to improve their health. And again, I witnessed the same transformation. When people learn to breathe correctly, their bodies unlock hidden potential they never knew existed. Athletes run faster with less effort. People struggling with asthma regain control of their breathing. Individuals battling fatigue discover energy they haven't felt in years. Even weight loss becomes easier. And this is where something fascinating happens. Because the principles that govern breathing efficiency are very similar to the principles that govern financial freedom and success. Let me explain. Most people believe success requires doing more work, more effort, more stress, more pushing. But the most successful individuals often operate differently. They focus on efficiency. They learn how to achieve more results with less wasted effort. Breathing works exactly the same way. The healthiest, fittest individuals are not those who breathe the most. They are the ones who breathe the most efficiently. Just like successful investors do not make the most trades, they make the smartest ones. Efficiency is the true secret of performance. And here is one of my favorite principles. Your breath is the remote control of your body. When your breathing is calm and controlled, your nervous system becomes calm and controlled. When your breathing becomes chaotic and heavy, your body enters a stress response. In modern life, stress constantly pushes us into poor breathing habits. We sit for long hours. We rush between tasks. We experience pressure, deadlines, financial worries, and constant digital distractions. Slowly, without realizing it, our breathing becomes shallow, rapid, and inefficient. And that inefficiency drains our physical and mental energy. But the moment you become aware of your breathing, everything begins to change. You regain control over your physiology, you influence your heart rate, you improve oxygen delivery, you calm the mind. And suddenly the body begins functioning the way nature originally designed it. This is why mastering your breathing is not just a health strategy. It is a life strategy, because energy is the foundation of every form of success. Without energy, you cannot think clearly. Without energy, you cannot perform physically. Without energy, you cannot pursue your goals. Energy creates productivity. Productivity creates opportunity. Opportunity creates financial freedom. And it all begins with something as simple as the air entering and leaving your lungs. That is why I often tell my students, control your breath and you control your life. In the journey ahead, you are going to discover how something as simple as breathing through your nose instead of your mouth can transform your oxygen delivery. You will learn how reducing your breathing volume actually increases endurance. You will discover how elite athletes simulate high-altitude training using breath control. And perhaps most importantly, you will learn how to reconnect your body with the natural breathing patterns that human beings once practiced effortlessly. Because your body already possesses extraordinary ability. Your lungs contain hundreds of millions of tiny air sacs capable of delivering oxygen with astonishing efficiency. Oxygen advantage the simple S. Your bloodstream carries oxygen to every cell in your body. Your nervous system constantly monitors carbon dioxide levels to regulate breathing automatically. Everything inside you is already perfectly designed for health and performance. All you need to do is remove the habits that interfere with that design. And when you do, something remarkable happens. You discover that the greatest performance advantage you could ever have was inside you all along, and it begins with a single breath. Ladies and gentlemen, let us go deeper into a truth that seems simple on the surface, yet carries extraordinary power once understood. Most people believe that the more oxygen they breathe into their lungs, the more oxygen their body receives. It sounds logical, and for decades even athletes, coaches, and health professionals have repeated this idea. When you feel tired, take a deep breath. When you run out of energy, breathe harder. When you feel stressed, inhale more air. But science reveals a fascinating paradox. The amount of oxygen that actually reaches your muscles, your brain, and your organs is not determined by how much oxygen you inhale. Your blood is already nearly full of oxygen most of the time. Under normal conditions, the oxygen saturation of your blood is typically between 95 and 99%. That means the red blood cells that carry oxygen are already almost completely loaded. Oxygen advantage the simple S, so if the oxygen tank is already full, breathing more air cannot significantly increase the oxygen in your blood. Instead, the real question becomes this: how does oxygen leave the blood and enter the muscles and tissues where it is needed? The answer lies in one of the most important physiological principles you will ever learn, a principle discovered more than a century ago called the Bohr effect. The Bohr effect explains that oxygen is released from red blood cells more easily when carbon dioxide levels in the blood are higher. In other words, carbon dioxide is not simply a waste gas. It is a critical regulator that allows oxygen to be delivered where the body needs it most. Think of oxygen as a valuable resource stored inside a warehouse, and carbon dioxide as the key that unlocks the warehouse door. Without the key, the oxygen remains trapped inside the building. With the key, the oxygen flows freely to the workers who need it. In your body, those workers are your muscles, your brain, and your organs. When you breathe too heavily, too rapidly, or through the mouth, you expel too much carbon dioxide. When that happens, the warehouse door begins to close. Oxygen remains locked inside the blood, instead of being delivered to the tissues. The result is reduced oxygen utilization, increased breathlessness, and lower physical performance. This phenomenon is known as chronic overbreathing. Chronic overbreathing does not always appear dramatic. It is not always the frantic panting you might see during a panic attack. Often it is subtle and constant. A person may breathe slightly faster than necessary. They may take slightly larger breaths than the body requires. They may breathe through the mouth instead of the nose. But these small habits, repeated minute after minute, hour after hour, day after day, gradually alter the body's chemistry. Over time, the brain becomes more sensitive to carbon dioxide. Even small increases in carbon dioxide trigger the urge to breathe more. This creates a self-reinforcing cycle where breathing becomes heavier and heavier, pushing carbon dioxide levels lower and lower. And as carbon dioxide decreases, oxygen delivery becomes less efficient. Now imagine what this means for an athlete running a race. The athlete believes that breathing harder will supply more oxygen. But in reality, the opposite has happened. By breathing too heavily, they are expelling the very gas needed to release oxygen into their muscles. Their breathing becomes louder, faster, and more desperate. Their chest rises and falls dramatically. Their shoulders tense, and soon they reach the wall of exhaustion. Many athletes believe that their muscles have failed them at that moment, but often it is not the muscles that have reached their limit. It is the breathing system that has become inefficient. Your lungs dictate how far and how fast your body can go. This is why elite endurance athletes display one characteristic more than any other. They can perform intense exercise while maintaining calm, controlled breathing. Watch an experienced marathon runner during the middle of a race. Their breathing remains rhythmic and steady. Their shoulders remain relaxed. Their body appears almost effortless in motion. Now compare that with an untrained runner attempting the same pace. Within minutes, their breathing becomes loud and chaotic. Their mouth opens wide as they struggle to pull in air. Their chest heaves with each breath. Both runners may have similar muscles and similar strength, but the difference lies in breathing efficiency. Breathing efficiency is the gateway to endurance. And this principle applies not only to athletes, but to every human being seeking greater health, energy, and productivity. Let me tell you about a man named Don. Don loved sports from the time he was a young boy. He watched professional cyclists and dreamed of becoming one himself. As a teenager, he trained constantly on his bicycle, riding long distances through the countryside. But no matter how hard he trained, he could never keep up with the others. His legs were strong, but his breathing betrayed him. After only a short time, his lungs burned and his chest tightened. His friends would ride ahead while he struggled to catch his breath. Eventually, Don gave up on his dream of competitive cycling. He assumed that his body simply wasn't built for endurance sports. Years passed. Don built a successful career in the technology industry and became a senior executive. But the old disappointment remained in the back of his mind. Then one day, he encountered the breathing techniques that I teach. At first, he was skeptical. Like most people, he believed that breathing was automatic and could not possibly be the source of such dramatic improvements. But he decided to try. He practiced breathing lightly and slowly. He learned to keep his mouth closed during daily activities. He performed breath hold exercises designed to increase tolerance to carbon dioxide. Within days, he felt a difference. His energy improved. His breathing felt calmer. Exercise became easier. Within months, he returned to cycling. And something remarkable happened. The breathlessness that once limited him began to disappear. His endurance increased dramatically. The rides that once exhausted him became enjoyable. Eventually, Don entered a competitive cycling race, And he won. Not only did he win his age category, but he also placed among competitors decades younger than him. The boy who once watched cyclists from a distance had finally become one of them. What changed? Not his muscles, not his equipment, not his determination. What changed was his breathing. And this story contains a powerful lesson that extends far beyond sport. Often the limitations we believe define us are not permanent barriers. They are simply systems that have not yet been optimized. This principle applies to your body, and it applies to your life. Many people believe financial success requires endless hustle, constant struggle, and overwhelming effort. But the most successful individuals understand something different. They understand leverage. Leverage means achieving greater results with smarter systems rather than greater effort. Breathing is leverage for the human body. When your breathing becomes efficient, everything else becomes easier. Your energy increases, your mental clarity improves, your endurance expands, your recovery accelerates. And suddenly tasks that once felt exhausting become manageable. The same is true in business, in career development, and in the pursuit of financial independence. Efficiency multiplies results. And one of the most powerful quotes I share with my students is this: "Master the fundamentals, and extraordinary performance follows naturally." Breathing is the most fundamental activity of life, yet it is also one of the most misunderstood. When you learn to breathe correctly, you begin to tap into a natural advantage that has existed inside you since birth. This is the true meaning of the oxygen advantage. It is not about breathing more, it is about breathing better. And once you begin to understand this, you will see your body in an entirely new way, because the greatest performance technology ever created is already inside you, your lungs, your blood, your breath. And in the next stage of this journey, we will explore a simple test that can reveal exactly how efficient your breathing is right now. A test that can predict your endurance, your health, and even your ability to handle stress. It is called the body oxygen level test. And once you discover your score, you may never look at your breathing the same way again. Ladies and gentlemen, now that you understand the hidden paradox of oxygen and the crucial role carbon dioxide plays in delivering oxygen to your muscles and organs, we arrive at a very practical and powerful question. How can you measure the efficiency of your breathing? Most people have no idea how well or how poorly they breathe. Unlike body weight, blood pressure, or heart rate, breathing efficiency is rarely measured in everyday life. Yet it is one of the most accurate indicators of health, fitness, and endurance. To solve this problem, I developed a simple test that anyone can perform within a few minutes. It is called the Body Oxygen Level Test, or BOLT score, measures your tolerance to carbon dioxide and gives a clear indication of how efficiently your body utilizes oxygen. The principle behind the test is simple. When you hold your breath after a gentle exhale, carbon dioxide begins to accumulate in the blood. The urge to breathe that eventually appears is triggered not by a lack of oxygen, but by rising carbon dioxide levels. In other words, your body is responding to carbon dioxide pressure. The point at which you feel the first natural urge to breathe indicates how sensitive your breathing receptors are to carbon dioxide. A low tolerance means your breathing is inefficient and heavy. A higher tolerance means your breathing is calmer, lighter, and far more efficient. Imagine two individuals running side by side. One begins to breathe heavily after only a short distance. Their breathing becomes loud and desperate. Their body quickly becomes exhausted. The other maintains steady, quiet breathing for a much longer time. Their movements appear controlled and effortless. The difference between them is not always strength or determination. Often the difference lies in carbon dioxide tolerance. Athletes with higher tolerance levels can perform intense exercise with far less breathlessness. Their bodies deliver oxygen more efficiently, allowing them to sustain performance longer. This is why many elite endurance athletes experience up to 60% less breathlessness compared to untrained individuals performing the same activity. Oxygen advantage, the simple S. Now let me explain how the BOLT test works. Sit comfortably and breathe normally through your nose for a few minutes. Allow your breathing to settle into a calm rhythm. Then gently exhale through your nose, pinch your nose closed with your fingers, and start counting the seconds. You hold your breath only until you feel the first natural desire to breathe. This may appear as a slight contraction of the diaphragm, a subtle urge to inhale, or a mild discomfort. The moment you feel this signal, release your nose and breathe normally again through the nose. The number of seconds you held your breath comfortably is your Bolt score. Now here is what those numbers mean. A Bolt score of 10 seconds or less indicates very poor breathing efficiency. Individuals with scores this low often experience symptoms such as fatigue, nasal congestion, poor sleep, anxiety, or breathlessness during light activity. A score between 10 and 20 seconds indicates moderate breathing efficiency, but there is still significant room for improvement. A score between 20 and 30 seconds suggests good breathing control and reasonable fitness, but when your Bolt score rises above 40 seconds, you enter a range typically seen in highly trained athletes. At this level, breathing becomes extremely efficient, breathlessness during exercise decreases dramatically, and endurance increases significantly. This simple test reveals something profound. Your breathing patterns determine how your body responds to stress, exercise, and daily life. And the good news is that your Bolt score can improve. Breathing efficiency is not fixed. It is trainable. This realization opens the door to enormous possibilities. Let me tell you about another individual who discovered this truth. His name was Doug. Doug was a successful professional in his mid-40s. He lived a busy life, balancing work responsibilities and family commitments. But throughout his life, he had always believed he was not built for athletics. Since childhood, Doug had suffered from asthma. Running even short distances left him gasping for breath. Physical activity felt like a battle against his own lungs. His younger brother, on the other hand, was naturally athletic. Doug often watched him play sports while he remained on the sidelines. Over the years, Doug accepted this difference as permanent. He believed his body simply lacked the capacity for endurance. But something changed when he began exploring breathing training. At first, his goal was modest. He simply wanted to improve his health and ensure he would remain active as he grew older. When Doug performed the Bolt test, his score was extremely low. His breathing system was highly sensitive to carbon dioxide, which meant his body reacted strongly to even small changes during physical activity. But instead of accepting this limitation, Doug began practicing breathing exercises designed to retrain his respiratory system. He focused on breathing through his nose rather than his mouth. He practiced light, controlled breathing during rest. He incorporated breath hold exercises while walking and running. At first, progress felt slow. He could barely jog a few steps without needing to open his mouth and gasp for air. But gradually, his tolerance improved. Within a few months, Doug could run a 10-kilometer race. Soon after that, he completed a half marathon, and within a year, he ran the famous Big Sur Marathon. For a man who once believed his lungs were incapable of endurance, this transformation felt almost unbelievable. But Doug's story is not unique. When breathing patterns change, the entire physiology of the body begins to change. Muscles receive oxygen more efficiently. The diaphragm becomes stronger. The nervous system becomes calmer. Energy levels increase, and the body begins performing closer to its natural potential. Now let us connect this transformation to another important idea: discipline and long-term success. Breathing efficiency improves not through dramatic effort, but through small, consistent changes. The exercises themselves are simple. They do not require expensive equipment. They do not require extreme training schedules, but they require consistency. And this is where the philosophy of breathing intersects with the philosophy of financial freedom. Most people believe success comes from large, dramatic actions. But in reality, success is often the result of small, consistent improvements repeated over time. A small improvement in breathing each day. A small improvement in health each week. A small improvement in skills each month. Over years, these small improvements compound, just like financial investments compound. One of my favorite principles says, success is rarely about intensity, it is about consistency. The same applies to breathing training. You do not need to change everything overnight. You simply need to start becoming aware of your breathing patterns. Notice when you breathe through your mouth. Notice when your breathing becomes heavy during rest. Notice when stress causes your breathing to accelerate. Awareness is the first step toward transformation. Once you become aware, you can begin making small adjustments. Close the mouth, breathe through the nose, slow the breath, allow the body to retain slightly more carbon dioxide. These simple adjustments gradually retrain your respiratory system. And as your Bolt score increases, your body becomes more efficient at delivering oxygen. Your breathing becomes quieter, your endurance improves, your mind becomes calmer, your performance rises. And suddenly you realize something extraordinary. The energy you once thought required extreme effort was always available to you. It was simply hidden behind inefficient breathing habits. But when you learn to breathe correctly, that energy begins to flow naturally. Because your breath is not just a biological function, it is the bridge between your body and your performance. It is the hidden engine behind endurance, strength, and resilience. And when that engine begins to run efficiently, every part of your life moves forward with greater power and clarity. In the next part of this journey, we will explore one of the most powerful yet overlooked principles of breathing efficiency, the role of the nose. Because something as simple as breathing through your nose instead of your mouth can dramatically improve oxygen delivery, endurance, and overall health. And once you understand why the nose is designed for breathing, you may never breathe the same way again. Ladies and gentlemen, now we arrive at one of the simplest yet most powerful principles of efficient breathing. It is so simple that many people overlook it completely, yet its impact on your health, your endurance, and your performance can be extraordinary. The principle is this: the nose is for breathing and the mouth is for eating. It sounds almost obvious, but modern life has caused millions of people to reverse this natural design. People breathe through their mouths while walking, working, exercising, and even while sleeping. This small habit quietly disrupts the body's ability to regulate breathing, deliver oxygen efficiently, and maintain balance within the respiratory system. To understand why nasal breathing is so powerful, we must first appreciate how perfectly the human body is designed. When you breathe through your nose, the air you inhale undergoes a remarkable transformation. The nasal passages warm the air, filter it, and humidify it before it reaches your lungs. Tiny hairs inside the nose capture dust particles and other impurities, protecting the respiratory system. But the benefits go far beyond filtration. Inside the nasal cavity, a gas called nitric oxide is produced. Nitric oxide plays a crucial role in expanding blood vessels, improving circulation, and increasing oxygen uptake in the lungs. When you breathe through the nose, this gas mixes with the inhaled air and travels into the lungs, enhancing oxygen delivery to the bloodstream. Mouth breathing bypasses this entire process. Air enters the lungs cold, dry, and unfiltered. Nitric oxide is not delivered effectively. The breathing volume tends to increase, leading to excessive loss of carbon dioxide. And as we discussed earlier, when carbon dioxide levels drop, oxygen becomes less available to the muscles and organs that need it. In other words, mouth breathing creates inefficiency. Nasal breathing creates efficiency. This is why elite endurance athletes often develop the habit of breathing through their noses during training. By doing so, they naturally regulate breathing volume and maintain healthier carbon dioxide levels. The nose acts like a built-in regulator, preventing excessive breathing and ensuring that the body maintains a balanced respiratory rhythm. Now imagine the difference between two runners. The first runner breathes through the mouth. Their breathing becomes loud and rapid. Their chest expands dramatically with each breath and their shoulders begin to rise with tension. The second runner breathes through the nose. Their breathing remains quieter and more controlled. Their diaphragm moves smoothly, and their body remains relaxed. Over time, the second runner conserves energy far more effectively. This difference in breathing efficiency can determine who finishes a race strong and who collapses in exhaustion. But nasal breathing is not just for athletes. It affects every person who wants to live with greater energy and health. Consider what happens during sleep. Many individuals sleep with their mouths open without realizing it. This habit leads to dry mouth, snoring, poor sleep quality, and frequent awakenings. The body receives less efficient oxygen delivery throughout the night, which can result in morning fatigue and reduced mental clarity. You may have experienced this yourself. You sleep for 8 hours, yet you wake up feeling tired, sluggish, and unfocused. Often the problem is not the number of hours slept. The problem is how you breathe while sleeping. Nasal breathing during sleep supports deeper rest, improved oxygen delivery, and better nervous system balance. The body recovers more effectively, and the mind wakes with greater clarity. This is why something as simple as training yourself to keep your mouth closed during sleep can have dramatic benefits for health and energy. Now let us connect this principle with the broader philosophy of personal growth and success. One of the greatest mistakes people make in life is believing that transformation requires complicated solutions. They search for advanced strategies, expensive programs, or revolutionary technologies. But often the most powerful changes come from returning to fundamental habits. Breathing through the nose is one of those habits. It is not complicated, is not expensive, yet its impact on your physiology can be profound. This principle reflects a universal law of success. Master the basics. Whether in health, athletics, business, or financial growth, the individuals who achieve extraordinary results often focus on mastering simple fundamentals that others ignore. Think of a successful entrepreneur. They may build complex organizations and manage sophisticated financial strategies, but at the core of their success lies a deep understanding of simple principles. Disciplined habits, consistent effort, and efficient systems. The same is true for physical performance. The body is not a machine that requires endless complexity. It is a system that thrives on balance. When breathing becomes balanced, the entire system begins functioning more effectively. Let me share another story that illustrates this principle. Her name was Allison. Allison was an enthusiastic cyclist who trained several times each week. She loved riding long distances and enjoyed the sense of freedom that cycling gave her. But despite her dedication, she often experienced severe breathlessness during rides. Even at moderate speeds, she felt dizzy and nauseous. At times, she had to stop completely and sit by the side of the road to recover. Concerned about her symptoms, Allison visited several doctors. They examined her lungs and heart and found nothing medically wrong. From a clinical perspective, she appeared healthy. But Allison knew something was wrong. Sexy was wrong. Her body was clearly struggling during exercise, and she could not understand why. When she came to see me, the answer became clear within minutes. She was breathing through her mouth constantly, not only during cycling, but throughout her daily life as well. Her breathing movements were heavy and visible. Her chest rose and fell dramatically even while resting. She sighed frequently and felt short of breath even during light activities. In short, her breathing system had become inefficient. By breathing through the mouth and overbreathing throughout the day, Allison had reduced her body's ability to deliver oxygen effectively. Her symptoms during cycling were not caused by weak muscles or poor fitness. They were caused by poor breathing habits. We began retraining her breathing immediately. She practiced nasal breathing during daily activities. She reduced the volume of her breaths. She incorporated breath hold exercises to improve carbon dioxide tolerance. Within 2 weeks, the change was dramatic. Her dizziness disappeared. Her breathlessness decreased, her endurance improved, but the benefits extended beyond cycling. Allison reported sleeping better at night. Her stress levels decreased, and her concentration improved during work. What had once been a frustrating limitation became a source of empowerment. And this transformation once again illustrates a powerful truth. Your breathing habits influence every system in your body. Your cardiovascular system, your nervous system, your energy metabolism, your mental clarity. When breathing becomes inefficient, the entire body struggles. But when breathing becomes efficient, the body begins operating closer to its natural potential. And this brings us to another powerful principle. Efficiency creates freedom. An inefficient system wastes energy. It struggles to produce results. It requires constant effort just to maintain basic performance. An efficient system multiplies results with less effort. The same principle applies to breathing, health, productivity, and financial success. When you learn to breathe efficiently, your body uses oxygen more effectively. When you manage your time efficiently, your work produces greater results. When you manage your finances efficiently, your money begins working for you rather than against you. Efficiency is the bridge between effort and achievement. And breathing efficiency is one of the most fundamental forms of efficiency your body can develop. So remember this simple rule. Keep your mouth closed. Breathe through your nose. Allow your breathing to become lighter, calmer, and more controlled. With time, your body will adapt. Your tolerance to carbon dioxide will increase, your oxygen delivery will improve, and your endurance, both physical and mental, will expand because the breath you take today is shaping the performance you will achieve tomorrow. And in the next part of this journey, we will explore another fascinating dimension of breathing performance, a technique used by elite athletes around the world, a method that allows you to simulate the benefits of high-altitude training without ever leaving sea level. It is a powerful way to strengthen your respiratory system, increase red blood cells, and elevate your endurance beyond what you once believed possible. And it begins with something surprisingly simple, learning how to bring the mountain to you. Ladies and gentlemen, now we enter one of the most fascinating dimensions of breathing science, a concept that has been used by elite athletes for decades to gain a competitive advantage. It is called high-altitude training. For many years, coaches and sports scientists observed something remarkable. Athletes who trained at high altitudes often returned to sea level performing better than ever before. They ran faster, endured longer, and recovered more efficiently. But why? The reduced oxygen pressure forces the body to adapt. To survive and perform in this environment, the body increases the production of red blood cells, the tiny carriers responsible for transporting oxygen through the bloodstream. More red blood cells mean greater oxygen carrying capacity. Greater oxygen delivery means stronger endurance. This is why elite athletes from around the world travel to mountain environments to train. The reduced oxygen stimulates the body to become more efficient. But of course, not everyone can move to the mountains. Most of us live at sea level, surrounded by comfortable oxygen levels in modern environments that do not challenge our respiratory systems. So the question becomes, how can ordinary individuals access the benefits of altitude training without leaving their homes? The answer lies in a remarkable principle. You do not need to go to the mountain. You can bring the mountain to you. Through controlled breathing exercises and breath-holding techniques, it is possible to simulate the effects of high-altitude conditions inside your own body. By temporarily reducing oxygen intake, you create a mild and controlled oxygen shortage that stimulates the same adaptive responses the body would experience in the mountains. This process trains your body to tolerate higher levels of carbon dioxide and lower levels of oxygen. Over time, your respiratory system becomes stronger and more efficient. Your muscles learn to function effectively with less oxygen. Your body improves its ability to deliver oxygen where it is needed, and your endurance begins to increase dramatically. For athletes, this advantage can be transformative. But even for individuals who are not professional competitors, the benefits are extraordinary. Improved oxygen delivery enhances physical performance, mental focus, and overall vitality. Let me tell you about another individual whose life was transformed by this principle. Her name was Donna. Donna had spent years trying to lose weight. She had tried nearly every diet imaginable: low-carb diets, high-protein plans, calorie restriction programs, weight loss supplements. Each new attempt began with hope, and each attempt ended with frustration. The weight would drop temporarily, only to return again weeks later. Alongside her struggles with weight, Donna faced another challenge. Whenever she attempted exercise, she quickly ran out of breath. Even light activity left her exhausted. This created a vicious cycle. She could not exercise because she felt breathless, and she could not lose weight because she avoided exercise. Eventually, Donna felt defeated. She believed her body simply could not change. When Donna first came to see me, the solution did not begin with diet advice or intense workouts. Instead, we focused on something far more fundamental: her breathing. Donna's breathing was heavy and inefficient. She breathed through her mouth frequently, even during rest. Her breathing volume was far higher than her body required. This meant she was constantly expelling too much carbon dioxide, reducing the release of oxygen to her tissues. Her body was working harder than necessary just to maintain basic energy levels. We began with simple breathing exercises designed to reduce her breathing volume and increase her tolerance to carbon dioxide. These exercises were gentle and could even be performed while sitting quietly. For the first time in years, Donna felt hopeful. Within 2 weeks, something remarkable happened. She lost 6 pounds, not because she followed a strict diet, not because she forced herself through exhausting workouts, but because her breathing efficiency improved. Better oxygen delivery allowed her body to metabolize food more effectively. Her energy levels increased, and her appetite naturally balanced itself. As weeks passed, Donna gradually became more active. Exercise no longer felt like punishment. It became something she could enjoy. Eventually, she lost 30 pounds, but more importantly, she gained something far more valuable: confidence. Donna realized that her body was not broken. It simply needed the right system to function efficiently. And this discovery highlights a powerful principle that extends far beyond breathing or weight loss. Many people believe transformation requires extreme effort. They believe they must suffer endlessly in order to achieve change. But in reality, the most effective transformations often come from improving efficiency rather than increasing effort. In financial life, the same rule applies. Some individuals work harder and harder, pushing themselves endlessly while remaining trapped in cycles of stress and limited progress. Others focus on efficiency. They learn how money works. They create systems that allow income to grow without constant struggle. They allow investments to compound. They design their lives so that effort produces greater results over time. The difference between these two paths is not always intelligence or determination. Often the difference is simply understanding the system. Breathing is a system. Your body is a system. Your energy, health, and performance are products of how efficiently that system operates. When the system functions poorly, everything feels difficult. When the system functions well, progress becomes natural. That is why I often say to my students, efficiency multiplies effort. When your breathing becomes efficient, every movement becomes easier. When your oxygen delivery improves, your muscles perform better. When your nervous system becomes calmer, your mind becomes clearer. And suddenly, tasks that once felt overwhelming become manageable. Now imagine applying that same philosophy to every area of life. Efficient habits, efficient thinking. Efficient financial systems. Small improvements repeated consistently can produce extraordinary long-term results. Just as improving breathing gradually transforms your endurance, improving your daily habits gradually transforms your future. And this brings us to one final insight about breathing training. Patience is essential. The body adapts gradually. When you begin reducing your breathing volume or practicing breath hold exercises, your respiratory system begins adjusting its sensitivity to carbon dioxide. At first, the changes may feel subtle, but with consistent practice, your tolerance increases. Your breathing becomes lighter and calmer. Your oxygen delivery improves, and the improvements begin to compound. Within weeks, you may notice deeper sleep. Within months, you may experience greater endurance. Over time, you may achieve levels of performance and energy that once seemed impossible because the human body is extraordinarily adaptable. Given the right stimulus, it learns. Given the right habits, it evolves. And the simple act of breathing, something you perform 25,000 times each day, becomes a powerful tool for shaping your health, your energy, and your performance. In the final part of this journey, we will bring everything together. You will learn how breathing efficiency becomes a lifelong advantage, how disciplined breathing habits create lasting health and endurance, and how mastering something as simple as your breath can transform not only your body, but the way you approach success in every area of life. Because once you truly understand the power of your breath, you realize something extraordinary. The greatest performance advantage you could ever possess has been with you every second of your life. And all you need to do is learn how to use it. Ladies and gentlemen, as we reach the final stage of this journey, I want you to pause for a moment and reflect on something extraordinary. From the moment you were born until this very second, your body has taken breath after breath without asking for your permission. More than 20,000 times every single day, your lungs expand and contract, delivering life to every cell in your body. And yet, for most of our lives, we treat this incredible system as if it were insignificant. We think about food, we think about exercise, we think about productivity, stress, money, and success. But we rarely think about breathing, and yet breathing sits quietly at the center of everything. Your energy depends on it, your endurance depends on it, your health depends on it. Even your emotional state depends on it. Throughout this journey together, we have explored a powerful idea. The amount of oxygen your body can use is not determined simply by how much oxygen you inhale, but by how efficiently your breathing system functions and how effectively oxygen is released from the blood to your tissues. Oxygen advantage the simple S, and that efficiency is largely determined by your tolerance to carbon dioxide. When you breathe too heavily or too frequently, you remove too much carbon dioxide from your body. As carbon dioxide levels fall, oxygen becomes less available to the muscles and organs that need it. But when you breathe calmly and efficiently, carbon dioxide levels remain balanced. Oxygen flows more freely to your muscles, brain, and heart. The result is better endurance, clearer thinking, and greater vitality. Now imagine living your life with this understanding guiding your daily habits. Instead of breathing through your mouth during stress, you pause and breathe gently through your nose. Instead of allowing anxiety to accelerate your breathing, you slow your breath and calm your nervous system. Instead of exhausting yourself during exercise by breathing harder and harder, you train your body to move with calm and controlled breathing. This is not simply a technique. It is a new relationship with your body. And when you develop that relationship, something remarkable happens. Your breath becomes a tool for transformation. Let me share a powerful principle with you. Your body is constantly adapting. Every day, your nervous system learns from the patterns you repeat. If you breathe heavily and rapidly throughout the day, your body learns to treat that pattern as normal. Your breathing receptors become sensitive to carbon dioxide, triggering the urge to breathe more frequently. But if you consistently practice lighter, calmer breathing, your body begins to adjust. Your tolerance to carbon dioxide increases. Your breathing becomes quieter and more efficient. Gradually, your entire physiology changes. Your muscles receive oxygen more efficiently. Your circulation improves. Your nervous system becomes more balanced. Your endurance expands. And the most fascinating part is that these changes do not require extreme effort. They require awareness and consistency. This principle mirrors something we see again and again in life. Success is rarely the result of one dramatic action. It is the result of small habits repeated consistently over time. Consider financial freedom. Most people imagine wealth as the result of sudden breakthroughs or extraordinary luck. But in reality, financial independence is often built through consistent, disciplined actions repeated for years. Saving a small portion of income, investing wisely, allowing time and compound growth to work quietly in the background. The same principle applies to health and breathing. Small improvements practiced daily can transform the body in ways that feel almost miraculous. This is why I often remind my students of a simple truth. A great performance is built on simple habits. Breathing through the nose, reducing unnecessary breathing, improving tolerance to carbon dioxide, practicing breath hold exercises. These habits may appear small, but their impact can be profound. Over time, your breathing becomes calmer. Your sleep improves, your stress levels decrease, your physical endurance grows, and something else begins to happen. Your mind becomes clearer. Because the brain consumes enormous amounts of oxygen. When oxygen delivery improves, mental performance improves as well. Focus sharpens, creativity increases, decision-making becomes more precise. In other words, breathing efficiency supports not only physical performance but intellectual performance as well. And this is why the oxygen advantage extends far beyond athletics. It applies to entrepreneurs building companies. It applies to professionals managing demanding careers. It applies to parents balancing work, family, and personal well-being. In every area of life, energy is the foundation of performance. Without energy, ambition fades. Without energy, opportunities slip away. Without energy, even the strongest motivation struggles to survive. But when your body operates with efficient breathing, energy becomes abundant. And with energy comes momentum. Momentum leads to productivity. Productivity creates opportunity. Opportunity opens the door to freedom. That freedom may appear in different forms for different people. For some, it means athletic excellence. For others, it means improved health and longevity. For others, it means the ability to pursue financial independence and build a life of purpose. But in every case, the foundation remains the same: a body that functions efficiently, a mind that remains calm and focused, and a breath that supports both. Now let me leave you with one final idea. Most people search outside themselves for advantages They look for better equipment, better technology, better shortcuts, but often the most powerful advantage is already within you. It is the rhythm of your breath. Each breath you take carries oxygen into your body. Each breath influences your nervous system. Each breath affects how your body performs. And once you become aware of that power, you begin to realize something remarkable. You are not simply breathing to stay alive. You are breathing to perform. You are breathing to think. You are breathing to move forward in life. So remember this simple principle. Control your breathing, and you begin to control your body. Control your body, and you begin to control your energy. Control your energy, and you begin to control your life. And when you master that process, the advantages you gain, whether in health, performance, or success, are not temporary. They become part of who you are, because the oxygen advantage is not simply a program. It is a way of living, a way of breathing, a way of unlocking the potential that has always existed inside you. And it begins with the very next breath you take.